2018, I lost my granddad, and he was poorly before that. And my dad said, "Have I ever stopped you coming to the house?" And I said, "No, but my mum has, and you haven't stopped her stopping me." So I went down about four times, and all four times there was hardly any communication.
Can you tell me about your relationship with your grandfather, especially when he was in hospital, you just mentioned, and how
Amazing.
that impacted your
He was
family as well?
even more closer. My dad's dad, he never ever stopped me coming to the house. So every time I traveled to the city where I was born, I went to see my granddad and had some enjoyable moments with my children there, had laughs and ate food together and had amazing moments. And there were times where my mum would interfere and say to my grandma, "Do not let her in, do not feed her and the children. Why are you doing this?" And there was times when my grandma hurt me over the phone and said, "You're not allowed to come here." And I did approach my dad, and my dad's like, "Come and meet me there, you know, don't say anything, but let's meet up. I'll come to my dad's, and I won't say anything, don't say anything." I'm like, on the phone, I just kept quiet, but I developed one thing growing up without my family, and that was a voice. I think a voice is very powerful for a human being, and it should never stop as a child, as an adult. And one thing I developed over the years, speaking and sharing my stories with MPs and agencies that support people going through domestic violence or abuse as a child. And voice is very powerful. So when I went to my granddad's, I didn't delay that voice. I actually spoke out and said to my grandma, "Please, can you not stop me coming to the house? This is my granddad's house, and I love him dearly, but if I come all the way from another city to a city, I expect to see my granddad." And my dad was like, "Leave it, leave it." I was like, "No, Dad, she needs to know that she can't stop me." And my granddad was fuming. He was in so much anger and distress. And he was like, "Nobody's going to stop you coming here. You go wherever you want." And that's one thing he always said to me: go wherever you want. Don't ever feel like you can't go anywhere. And I went to the hospital when he was poorly. I was really, really scared to go actually to the hospital. And I was like, to the staff, I was like, "Is there any way that I can see my granddad on his own without the family?" She's like, "I'm really sorry. I understand your situation," because I explained to her the situation. And she was like, "I'm really sorry, but your granddad is very popular. He's got the whole family in the room with him." I was like, "Oh my gosh. Like, do I want to really miss this moment? It might be his last day. Or do I want to see him?" So I took that step forward. I went to another city and dropped where, currently I lived in a city where I am now. So I went to the city that I lived before where I experienced the domestic violence. I have some really good friends. I dropped both of my daughters there, and I took my oldest son to the hospital with me. And I went and visited my granddad. And then after that, every weekend, it was the month of Ramadan, actually. And every weekend of the month of Ramadan, because in the week there was at school, I would go and visit my granddad and stay in a hotel. Not one family member asked me if I would like to stay with the children. Did I need any food? Was I catered for? Nothing. I stayed from the Saturday till the Sunday, and then vacated for the children to go to school Monday to Friday. And I was also supporting a friend at the time whose mom had stage 4 cancer. So in the week, I was supporting her while the children were at school. And on the weekend, I was packing to go to another city to see my granddad. And at the time, there was an experience where my granddad was only allowed to have holy water because the hospital verified that they don't know how long he's got, but he's in his last days. So from one weekend to the next weekend, he was still on holy water. And I was like, "Great, holy water, no food." So I said to my granddad, I said, "Are you hungry?" And when older people, and they're just like, "It's okay," kind of thing. "I'm fine." So I went to speak to the nurse, and I said to the nurse, "I know my family said that he's not allowed any food, but is there any reason why he's not allowed food? Is he able to eat? Is he okay?" So he was able to eat. So I got him a quarter of a mashed potato, mashed it up with loads of butter, beans and cheese, and I proudly fed my granddad with his favorite juice, which was pineapple juice. And I swear it was the best moments of seeing him eat with so much joy. It's like he hadn't eaten for years. That's how it felt. At the time of doing that, my dad had walked into me, like into the room, and he was very disappointed in me for feeding my granddad. And my granddad interfered and he was like, no, it's okay. And I explained to my dad, like, the nurses have said there's no reason why he can't eat. And he survived the whole month. On his the last week of Ramadan, he passed away. So I was able to spend about 3 weekends or 4, probably. And at that time, I spent 2 Eids with my family, my whole entire family, meaning my relatives, far distant relatives that came to the funeral. So I was in that city quite a lot around the time, because you have one celebration Eid and then you have another one. And then I was invited to 2 family weddings, and I was quite amazed, actually. It was the same auntie that invited me. And yeah, it was a memorable moment. I've not been to an Asian wedding for ages, not having the family around me. So yeah, it was a very memorable moment. And not long after that, I think I intervened in a conversation that obviously is supposed to be adult conversation. And my grandma was going through a lot at the time, and they had cleared her post office account that she shared with my granddad. And they took the death certificate and my granddad's passport from her, as they need it when you bury in a body and whatever else. And they wouldn't give it her back, so she couldn't apply for any money. So instead of giving her the post office account money back, they shared it between the siblings. And the 40 days of her sitting at home, because after a funeral in the Islamic law, you know, a woman should sit at home for 40 days. She didn't get a call to say, do you need any food? Do you need any help? But in 40 days, they came to the property, all the siblings, and questioned the money that my granddad had left, which was very disappointing. Till this day, they said I should have never got involved. But I texted my dad's side siblings and just said, I think it's awful what they're doing. I think they need to give my grandma some space. And there was a will made previously as to my grandma should have all the money. But obviously in Islamic law, the siblings should have a share and cut of the money. But obviously my granddad didn't want that. He wanted my grandma to have all the money, because she looked after him for the last 20 years, cooked for him, cleaned for him. And that's what he wanted. But they didn't approve of me stepping in and having a voice. So I was isolated from the family at that time.
And how long did this go on for, the isolation?
That went on for a while. I got in touch with my dad. He was like, I can't do this restaurant thing anymore. Like, I want to play with my grandchildren. You need to come to the house. Have I stopped you? And that's when I went a couple of times to the house. And within the year, I went about 4 times, 4, 5, 5th time I went. And one of the excuses were, I never feed the kids there. I don't eat food there. I'm sorry, but you know, if you're going to your mum's and she's not talking to you or your children, and children are feeling uncomfortable, calling her, you know, cruel. And I'm like trying to explain to the kids, you know, she's still your grandma. You know, some people, you know, are like that. But, you know, it's not nice to call people names, but to acknowledge the behavior or acknowledge how that you've been treated. So I said to my dad, you know, on the 5th time, I would eat there, like I'd help you to cook and we'll eat together. But on the 5th time, when I rang him, he told me that I wasn't welcome, and that he didn't tell me at that precise moment on the phone that I wasn't welcome. He just told me to meet at a restaurant. I was thinking, oh, my mom and sister will be coming to this restaurant, but they didn't turn up. And that's when I found out that I wasn't welcome at home anymore. Apparently because I was confusing my sister, who I had probably seen about 20 odd times in the whole matter of my granddad being poorly, passing away, the 2 Eids and the 2 weddings and the several visits at home. Yeah. And then that's when I decided to go no contact.
And how long has that been?
We are in 2021 and that took place in 2019.
Okay.
3 years.
Yes.
Over the pandemic, was there any form of communication? Did your parents worry about if you were okay, the children okay? Because we've all been in lockdown.
Nothing.
Did you try to reach out to see if they were okay?
No, because I went no contact, I didn't reach out to them.
And your siblings, do you still stay in touch with them?
I was in contact with my younger brother. My sister, she got married and left. So my younger brother, who is, shall we say, 26, and I had contact with him, but it was like we had contact. He came to me when he was 17 in a different city. My parents took him away to where my older brother was, which meant that we had no communication because I don't speak to my older brother due to what happened to me as a child. And then he came back to me and stayed in the city where I was at the time, got his own place. And then he betrayed our relationship by being with my best friend behind my back. It was the betrayal of it all that hurt me the most. So we fell out and we got back in touch when my granddad was in hospital. He gave his number to my son, and that's how we got back in touch. And then recently in 2020 December was when we fell out again.
What was the cause of that?
My oldest son, he left home. My younger brother took him in basically because he left home. My younger son done a repetitive behavior of a lot of behaviors that I've experienced as a child and in my relationship. Along the years, I've had school supporting me, social care supporting me. Early stages, they didn't really understand. They tried to say that I was labeling my son, but I was just basically bullet pointing what he was doing. In fact, I was bang on right, because he got diagnosed in his teenage life with ADHD. So a lot of the behavior that I was, relating to was the diagnosis that he received. He couldn't sit 10 minutes in classes, whereas when he got diagnosed and supported, he was sitting in the class for an hour. He got one-to-one support and he did really well and he achieved his GCSEs and things were getting better with the support in place.
Yes.
As he got older, there was quite a few restrictions at home. And I knew that they weren't going to last forever. But the behaviors that he displayed in his younger teenage life it made me put these restrictions in place to safeguard my daughters.
Right.
And I didn't receive any support from the agencies that were involved at the time when these, behaviors were relating to him in early teenagehood. So as I got older, I had to put these things in place, to protect my daughters, basically. He left when he was 18. So I did good. 18 years of his life, protected him, supported him, no matter what behavior he was displaying. I still supported him. Any wrongs he did, I still supported him. And I got all the support and knowledge that I needed to do. And a lot of my life and time got taken up by my son's behaviors. I was in and out of schools and meetings, and it took me about 2 years to get an educational healthcare plan, which in the UK is a plan that supports children in place in school, primary school or secondary school up till the age of 25. They can receive extra help with education and get extra funding for equipment, such as laptops that read back to them, or things to provide support in so they can get a good education. My life had to go on hold. A lot of my healing went on hold when he was with me. He went into like a safe house when he was 18 and was quite vulnerable. They didn't take him to the doctors and got him the support that I had in place at home, which led him to be protected into a shared accommodation, which he had several warnings and he had to leave. And that's when my brother contacted me and said, you need to speak to him because right now I'm in a limbo. Thinking of taking him on.
Yeah.
But as a sister, you don't approve of how I live. Because we was brought up in a Muslim family, and as Muslims, we're not allowed to drink alcohol or smoke or party or gamble or have unmarried relationships. And my brother, he does these things, which it's his, way of life. And I don't judge anybody. I have friends that are gay, friends that are non-Muslims, which I wasn't allowed to have when I was a child. I wasn't allowed to be friends with someone that was a non-Muslim, and I never understood it why. Till now, as an adult, I still don't understand why. Because in life, we live in a multicultural world, and there's going to be people with all different needs and religions and views and opinions. So as I grew older, I learned how not to take it to offense if someone had an opinion on me and so on. Excellent. Obviously, in my younger years, I did. I used to take it to an offense, get really upset. It made me really stressed out. So now I know not to do that, And my son, he moved in with my son. He told me that he was drinking quite a bit and feeling sick, that he had to stop. He was smoking. And basically our relationship went downhill because I said to my brother, if you take him on, I don't approve of it. Because number one, you know everything that I have been through. Number two, you know what my son's done. And number three, you know that if he's living with you, then my daughters won't be able to come and see you. There was restrictions in place. He went and done what he wants to do. I will, and I am, basically. He didn't care. He just did it as he pleases. And he does remind me of my mum quite a bit, actually. He hasn't had a marriage. He hasn't got kids. And he hasn't had a healthy relationship. So he's had a violent relationship, in fact, with the girl that was meant to be my really good friend, which led to police being called out onto my brother. Found out when we got back in touch when my granddad was poorly. So yeah, at the moment it's just me and my two daughters with me, and we're a lot happier. We're all on a healing journey.
You seem to have come like a really long way from, your traumatic childhood and the other abusive marriages that you've had. But the one thing, all of us as, victims of narc abuse, like to know more about what's the healing journey been like, and what all did you try, what didn't work. If you could speak to that a little bit, that'd be very useful to all our listeners, I guess.
Definitely. I think at first when I was going through and I didn't understand it, the first thing that I'd tell people is to educate themselves on narcissistic abuse, get as much information as you can. Because when you start understanding what narcissistic abuse is and all the things that come with it, you will have more clarity in life. And one of the things that I found was not wanting to be here anymore. That was one part of my healing journey. It's not wanting to be here anymore. I felt like I was worthless. I felt like, that's it. I've given up. This journey is horrible.
Yeah.
Nobody loves me. Nobody likes me. I'm going through too much, and that's it. So when I left my really violent relationship, it led to a house fire, by the way. So I was one of the worst cases of domestic violence in the city that I lived at, and the last experience of it was a house fire and lots of harassment just before that, and police unable to catch him. And yeah, my house was on flames, and I was unable to deal with the fire because the triggers and the heat and my daughter getting burnt. It was just one of them where I was in shock and I just stood in front of a fire door. Luckily, I had called my younger brother and his friend to the house to stay over because they was watching a film. They was like, oh, we don't want to come. We're watching a film. And I'm like, please. Like, he's come so many times. They like, ring the police. And I'm like, I've rang them. There's so many times they're going to come out. He kept coming, knocking on the door, smoking a load of cigarettes outside my property, leaving a load of mess on the floor. By the time police here, he's gone. And then eventually he saw my brother and his friend in the property. My brother was only young at the time. And my brother's friend was an English boy. And he was like, oh my God, you're sleeping with a white boy. And yeah, boof, my door was on flames. And I stood in front of it. And my younger brother had to actually pick me up and take me into the other room. And his friend went and got water to put the fire out, you know, and did all the precautions that you need to do. When he got locked up, that's when I did a freedom program, which is a program. It's like a course, and it's where women that go through domestic violence in violent relationships can access in the UK. I don't know whether it's worldwide, but it's a freedom program that is actually allocated for children as well now. Yeah, the freedom program gave me light of red flags, and till this day, on the day that I accessed freedom program, I never knew what red flags were.
What sort of things did they show you? What sort of things did they teach you in the course?
They taught us about jealousy, about physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse. They taught us about behaviors that you would never even question and put down to abuse. Probably stuff like, oh, that actually looks really nice, but I think maybe you want to wear some leggings with that dress. You know, so if you was wearing a dress without leggings and your leg was showing a little bit, they would try and cover you up. And that was one form of abuse. Another one was, you know, there'd be different things such as, oh, I'm sure we planned a day out today and you're going out with your friend. Why don't you cancel that one and we'll go out? And they never actually booked the day out. But because you planned something with your friend, they just said that. And because you've been through a lot, your memory would have been, you know, not there. Narcissistic abuse and childhood abuse, in fact, you know, suffer with brain fog, memory problems, which then sometimes they would question themselves. Did I say that? Did we plan that? Did we? You know, so yeah, there was a lot of things that I learned from the freedom program, and red flags was quite a lot of them. And a lot of the women shared their story in these programs. And it was over so many weeks that you would do the program. And
excellent.
There were some amazing ladies that I've met.
Excellent.
I've actually sat this program twice. One in the last city where I experienced the domestic violence. But it was too soon, I think, after leaving the violent relationship to do the course. So when I had a few years when I started my healing journey, my proper healing spiritual journey, I resat the program and I felt loads better. And I, you know, took it in a bit more as well. What led to my healing journey where I am now, my youngest daughter, who's 7 at the moment, when she was born, my granddad really wanted to see her. And I said to my granddad, let me breastfeed, let me take it easy and I'll come and see you. And I think she was about 4 months old, and I took a taxi to the train station because I didn't drive at the time, which I do now. So that's one big achievement that I made. Yeah. And as I was heading to the train station, a lady was on her phone behind us, and she had hit the taxi, which caused me a great deal of a lot of stress. And it's like it hit a nerve. Everything never ever broke me as bad as that taxi accident. It ruined my whole life at that moment. I lost my marriage at the time. That was my youngest daughter's dad. I lost my home. I lost my work, everything that I'd worked up to while my ex-partner was in prison, the one that I went through narcissistic abuse with. And I came to a different city with no belongings. I first went to a safe home in, a little village, shall I say, and then came to the city where I am now. And basically, it was just an emotional journey because I developed some health conditions that I was unaware of, which I mentioned earlier in the interview, fibromyalgia. I actually got diagnosed in 2017 and I moved to the current city in 2014, end of 2014. So I was in the process of healing, like going to the physio, musculoskeletal clinic, doing everything I can to actually understand my body. I was having a great deal of pain on a daily basis to the extent where coming out of bed was a big thing for me, and being tired on a daily basis, being in pain every day, and the bed became my home basically, and I lived that on a daily basis. But even so, I got in contact with a lady, a spiritual healer, who did Reiki, which is healing energy. And as a child, I was never able to believe anything other than my religion, which was Islam. So we wasn't allowed to believe what Hindus or Sikhs or Christians believe in, or Rastafarians believe in. We were only allowed to believe in what we believed in. But I knew there was, deep down, there was something about me that was different to the rest of the children in school and my family. I just felt very apart and different from the whole entire family. There was some relatives that, like one of my mum's brothers, he was different, and the brother that I still speak to distantly, and my granddad and my other granddad as well, my mum's dad and my dad's dad, they were brothers, by the way. So when I say my family are all related, they never broke that. They call it a generational curse. But every family member, they got married into family. That's how, when we had family gatherings, they were huge, because my parents are cousins, my grandparents are cousins, or either way, like my dad's dad and my mum's dad are brothers. Wow. And that's how close our family was.
Right.
So it was one of them where I just felt like there were certain family members as a child growing up I related and I had happy moments with. So as a child, I suffered something with my nerve, and now I know what it is because I suffer it in my leg and my neck as well. So there's certain moments, like since I've had healing and stuff, is a lot better. But as a child, I kept it restricted me to do chores. So obviously my mum used to take me to this uncle to get it cured so I can come back and do chores. So I used to get like a nerve damage in my neck, which enabled me to move to the right. So I couldn't turn to the right like that. I had to turn my whole body. And I still suffer problems in my neck and shoulders due to the fibromyalgia, but I believe there was some sort of nerve damage from a young age. And my uncle, he used to do some Chinese remedy. Whatever he used to do, he used to cure a lot of people that couldn't walk up the stairs, had back problems. So he used to stand behind me and get his arms under my arms and, pull me back and get my neck and kind of pull it and give it a good stretch. And get my neck and then go click. I was like, but that moment that click happened.
Yeah, you feel better.
That worked. Better.
Release it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was one uncle that had, I call it gifted. So when a person is able to heal somebody or make somebody feel better, whether it's temporary or permanent, which I think most healing quantities are temporary, but you go for them quite a bit. He was definitely one of mine as a child. And then obviously my granddad, he was very grounded, so fruit and veg in the garden, big huge garden. So that was my other healing as a child. You spoke about healing earlier, and I remember that. And turning to God. So the uncle that I still speak to, he has a Islamic bookshop, and every time me and my children go there or visit this city, he's always giving us books and stuff like that. So I still had that connection with God, whether I prayed 5 times a day or not.
Yeah.
So that was my healing as a child. But as I got older, I got introduced to Reiki. Yeah. So Reiki is like a healing energy, and it comes from the palms of your hands. You don't have to specifically touch a body, but you can raise it higher to here, and you in tune to it. So some people will do it with symbols. Some people can do it with prayer. So some people will call it natural healing instead of Reiki, because some people get confused and people don't really like symbols. And, so I call it natural healing. I have been in tune to Reiki. I do believe it's helped me over the years. And this lady that I went to her once a month, and this lady knew so much about me. I was in a new city. The lady hardly knew me, only from the phone conversation we had. And we met at an event, and I booked in to have her therapy eventually at her house where she has a business. And she knew things about me that she couldn't possibly know from anywhere. She didn't have me on social media. She never had this conversation with me, but she picked up things about my childhood, about my mum, about a young dominant male around me, which was my son at the time. She picked up loads of things about me, and she felt the pain in my back to the extent where she was like, oh, and I will never forget that. I had that therapy for a whole year before I actually tuned into Reiki. So I did my degree level 1, 2, and 3 over the matter of 3 days, but in different years.
Right.
It's helped my healing journey, and it's helped me deal with my pain on a daily basis.
Great. And you did mention a psychologist. How long have you been seeing them, and how have they helped you?
I've seen a psychologist over the last 3 years. So I used to have face-to-face. Due to the COVID restrictions, it is still on the phone. I see my psychologist once a week, and they help me deal with my emotions, to just have a voice and voice out to somebody. It helps me not to voice to friends all the time how I'm feeling, and because you want to have a healthy relationship with your healthy friends. But all my friends are very understanding. I have developed some really good, healthy relationships over the years. I'm not going to sit here and say they've all been healthy. One thing that the viewers need to understand is when you enter a spiritual journey and a healing journey, there is going to be times where you're going to feel absolutely happy, and then next day, bam, you're going to have some shock of your life, and you're going to have to deal with some major stress. But it's only to feel happy again. And you're going to keep going through that journey, because on a healing journey, it's never going to be hunky-dory and happy and glory.
No.
Very well said.
And it seems that for your healing and sort of like survivorship, it seems that there's been a variety of mechanisms put into place. Not only with the Reiki, you have like the spiritual process, you have the therapy, have the psychology, and also your children. It seems like with
they
your
help me a
daughters,
lot.
Your relationship with them. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, this has been absolutely mind-blowing, this interview, Jamaisia, and thank you so much. I mean, you've really gone into depth, and I can only imagine that talking about certain episodes can bring back certain feelings as well. So I was mindful of that and just wanted you to talk to your comfort level. So for the viewers and ourselves, we really appreciate. What sort of message would you like to give out to other survivors of this kind of narc abuse, because it's very different to other kinds of domestic abuse? I mean, domestic abuse is difficult in one way, but this, especially with the narcissistic abuse and having been through it, as a young child, and then to go through it over and over again, to have to witness your own son, becoming like that.
So
how would you like to speak to survivors to be able to come out and just not stay silent?
Yeah, I would like to speak to the survivors, and I'd like to tell them one thing: speak up. You've got to voice how you're feeling, whether it's to a loyal friend, a loyal relative, whether it's even into a teacher at school, or, you know, someone at the college, or, you know, maybe a boyfriend or a partner. Speak up. A neighbor, whoever it is, just speak up, speak about it. The more you speak about it, the easier it'll become. You will find a lot of, you know, healing through just speaking. I feel like from speaking up, it's made me a stronger person. And for us to break that cycle, like you said, having repetitive, you know, either a lot of people have repetitive relationships with the same kind of, you know, personality, such as, you know, going through the narcissistic abuse or domestic violence or whatever kind of abuse it is. Like I went through my childhood abuse into, you know, a toxic relationship, into, you know, narcissistic abuse, and, you know, and then leading it into my own family, you know, them witnessing that learned behavior and etc. Break the cycle. And if you don't understand how to break the cycle, YouTube has got so much knowledge, information out of this world. Look into narcissistic abuse, childhood abuse, you know, find out what abuse is.
Yes.
You know, the meaning of abuse, the meaning of narcissistic abuse, and, you know, look into no contact, you know, look into all the little nitty gritties from narcissistic abuse, such as flying monkey, scapegoating, you know, projecting behavior. Look into all of these things, because it will help your journey to heal and help others, hopefully. Thank you.
Very well said. Beautifully said. Rena, do you have any final words?
First of all, I'm very grateful that you could give the time and describe your whole journey in so much detail with all of us. So really, really grateful for that. And the one thing I would love to hear from you at the end is how has all of this informed your relationship with your daughters, and how's that going? You know, once I think we can just wrap up with that and on a positive note.
Yeah, definitely. The relationship with my daughters is absolutely amazing now, because I'm helping them to heal themselves from what my youngest daughter's been through, what my daughter's been through with her burns. At primary school, she was given a profile to deal with her burns, because when she was younger, she went through, I didn't really speak about it, but she went through some burns from hot food. So that's when I stayed several times in hospital with her. She had several operations. The whole journey I was with her. So both daughters have experienced some sort of trauma, and I have been there every step of the way with them, from the moment I found out, from the moment I've seen what's happening, until this very moment, this very last moment. I am there and I listen to them. They understand my struggles on a daily basis. I speak to them and acknowledge them about my condition on a daily basis. We're actually going through at the moment of I'm teaching them what fibromyalgia is. So I'm getting them to search it themselves, because they're allowed, you know, they're able to use Google from a young age these days. So,
and are you hugging now? I know you said before this interview that you had, because of the lack of affection given to you, you had problems hugging people. Has that, have you managed to overcome that struggle, especially with your children?
I'm still going through the journey, and you know what? My kids hover over me when they want a hug, so I know when they need a hug, and they come straight to me. And especially bedtimes, or we could be just after school, they'll just come and give me the most loving, warm hug, and I feel the heat and, you know, the affection, and I'm like, wow. But yeah, I struggled myself to give affection to my children, but over the years of doing numerous courses, it's helped me to change certain behaviors that I've learned as a child, you know, witnessing through my parents and family members, and how to change things around, such as, you know, not finishing everything on the plate. It's okay to cry, it's okay to be angry and show emotions, and loads. Like, they speak their mind. Sometimes it comes out, I'm like, what?
Thank you for sharing some very difficult moments. Honestly, it's precious for us.
I'd like to just mention maybe about 1 or 2, 3 things that helped me. One of the things that really helped me is a company called doTERRA, and they have 100% natural essential oils. So here in my hands, I have lavender, which helps me to sleep and be relaxed. and wild orange as well, which I put in a diffuser and air that out. I do it in the living room. I do it in my bedroom. Also, while I've been speaking to you, I don't know if you can hear it, but I've got mindfulness.
Oh yes, I can hear the music.
Mhm.
Very calming.
I've got it in the
It's
background.
been making me feel sleepy after a long day of work.
Then if you see a bit of puff of smoke over there, I've got my essential oils
Oh
in the
wow.
diffuser and my rock soul. They're the
Yes.
things that help me on a daily basis. So I just wanted to mention that to the viewers.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
sharing that. It's very, very useful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And once again, thankful for the time and all of the experiences that you've shared, Jamaisia. We really wish you all the best going forward
Absolutely.
and hope to keep in touch with you.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
most definitely.
Yeah.
Keep in touch and keep us updated. There's things going on with
Absolutely.
you. I love what you post on Instagram. I'm quite a big
thank
follower.
you.
So yes,
Yeah,
keep us updated.
if anyone
Keep us
wants to follow
updated.
me,
Thank you so much.
thank
All
you.
the very best. Take care.